Videos from a transgender clinic have the governor of Tennessee up in arms. The clinic was blasted for turning children into pawns of the culture war experimentation, with treatments described as frightening and horrendous.
Well, the doctor was caught on video bragging about the amount of money the procedures rake into the clinic. Video also captures staff members being threatened because they objected to participating in the transgender treatments. Heather Sells brings us the details.
Not only is Governor Bill Lee calling for a state investigation into the clinic's medical practices, Southern Baptists are citing religious freedom issues after chilling videos uncovered and released by commentator Matt Walsh.
If you don't want to do this kind of work, don't work at Vanderbilt.
One video shows Dr. Ellen Clayton telling employees that it is, quote, problematic when they object to providing transgender care. Those treatments include hormones, puberty blockers, and surgery.
Saying that you're not going to do something because of your conscientious, because of your religious beliefs, is not without consequences, and it should not be without consequences.
Within hours, Brent Leatherwood, president of the Southern Baptist Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, blasted the clinic. He accused it of turning children into, quote, pawns of culture war experimentation. And he expressed equal concern about those of faith who object. Southern Baptist President Bart Barber also weighed in, calling transgender treatments for children frightening. And former Baptist President J.D. Greer called the revelations horrendous. The videos also show financial incentives, as one doctor gushed about how much the procedures bring in.
It's a lot of money. These surgeries make a lot of money. So female to male chest reconstruction can bring in $40,000. A patient just on routine hormone treatment, who I'm only seeing a few times a year, can bring in several $1,000s.
Now, in a historic move, Governor Lee wants to investigate, saying we should not allow permanent, life-altering decisions that hurt children or policies that suppress religious liberties, all for the purpose of financial gain. The Tennessee Attorney General's office told CBN News General Scrimetti will use the full scope of his authority to ensure compliance with Tennessee law. Vanderbilt disputes the charges, telling CBN News that Walsh's posts misrepresent facts, adding that Vanderbilt does allow staff to decline to participate in care they morally object to, and that it doesn't discriminate against them.
TransBuddy provides trained peer advocates.
Vanderbilt, known nationally as a transgender leader, declined to tell CBN News how many children it has treated since opening its clinic in 2018. Across the country, more than 60 such clinics have popped up in the last 15 years. Vanderbilt and others maintain they treat an underserved and high-risk population. A growing number of U.S. doctors, however, point to the lack of scientific evidence for these treatments, which can permanently mutilate and sterilize children. These treatments have gained rapid support in recent years from medical, political, and cultural heavyweights in the U.S. Now, the tide may be starting to turn, with states like Tennessee, Texas, and others pushing back. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Oh, it's absolutely horrific what is being said in these videos. One, that you'll lose your job. That was the clear implication from a doctor working at the clinic. The other is that they view it incredibly as some kind of profit-making center, that they can experiment on the bodies of teenagers, and you can make a lot of money doing it. That's why we're seeing the explosion of the clinics, is that there's a profit to be made in this. And it's about time for government to get involved to say, what exactly are you doing it and why are you doing it? And in all of this, are you following our laws? In other news, Hurricane Fiona pounded Bermuda early today with powerful winds and heavy rain. Puerto Rico is recovering after being hit hard by the same storm. George Thomas has the story from the CBN Newsroom. George?
Gordon, at least 8 people have died in the Caribbean islands as Fiona left behind a path of destruction in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. And some amazing video has shown just how powerful this hurricane has been. CBN's Brody Carter is tracking the storm.
Images from space show the strength of Hurricane Fiona, stretching some 800 miles across. The hurricane, which had been a Category 4, bringing winds that were hitting up to 130 miles per hour. Inside the storm, 50-foot waves were captured by scientists using this sail drone just hours before hitting due west of the British island territory of Bermuda.
So we want residents to please take this storm seriously.
Residents scrambled to board up homes, store their boats, and prepare for the worst ahead of last night's 10 p.m. curfew. The island hit hard by Fiona's heavy rain and strong winds.
I have lots of water, snacks, canned meat, mostly non-perishables I purchased for the storm.
Meanwhile, in storm-ravaged Puerto Rico, Fiona's heavy wind and rain washed homes off their foundations. The people are living in the dark after an island-wide blackout. CBN's Operation Blessing is on the ground. Thursday, they delivered 10,000 aqua tabs for clean water for drinking and cooking, Home Depot cleaning buckets, blue tarps, and other essential items needed after a storm of this magnitude. Puerto Rican pastor Giovanni Alamar Santos says despite the storm, he's still able to see God moving.
We didn't expect for Operation Blessing to be here. We know times have changed, but we feel blessed Operation Blessing has come. We see them here and the interest they have on helping communities and showing the love of the Lord.
Brody Carter, CBN News.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Brody, rather. Turning to the Middle East, where a recent delivery from Texas to Israel is causing quite a stir, mainly due to the cargo of 5 red heifers. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, talk is growing that their arrival is prophetic and a prerequisite for the return of the Messiah.
These are the red heifers that landed at Israel's Ben Gurion Airport. Rabbis believe the ashes of a red heifer are necessary for purifying priests to serve in a future temple. The heifers were discovered and brought to Israel with the help of the Bonei Israel Building Israel organization and its team leader, Byron Stinson. Rabbis from the Temple Mount Institute approached Stinson about the unique cattle.
They said, Byron, could you look in Texas and find us a red heifer? I wasn't expecting that, and it was shocking to me to think about it, but I know a lot of ranchers, and I know a little bit about cattle, being from Texas, and I always say yes to these Jewish rabbis because they're my friends, and I love them, and why not?
This began an in-depth process of finding the rare heifer that meets key stipulations found in the Bible.
The Bible gives us a clue as to the significance of the red heifers here in Numbers chapter 19, verse 1 and 2, where it says that God spoke to Moses and Aaron saying, "This is the ritual law that God has commanded, instruct the children of Israel to bring you a red cow without blemish, in which there is no defect, and on which no yoke has been laid." So it says that we're supposed to take a perfectly red cow with no white hairs or dark hairs at all, and a cow that no yoke has ever been on. So as a result, it's very, very rare to find a baby cow that is completely red.
The ashes of the red heifer would be used to purify water from the Gihon spring in the city of David. Just a few ashes could purify thousands of gallons of water. That water can be then purify priests from any contact with a dead body, so they can offer sacrifice in the temple.
Some Jews go every single day to a ritual bath, to a mikveh, in order to approach God in prayer in purity. However, it is not the same because we don't have the red heifer. Once we have the red heifer, we'll be completely pure and we'll be able to rebuild the temple.
The red heifer must also be 2 years old. These cattle are just around a year old and could qualify in just over a year.
So if they're able to make it without growing the white hairs or black hairs, I think with 5 of them we have a really good chance of that. Then they will be the first one in 2,000 years.
The Jewish sage Maimonides from the 12th century said throughout the first and second temples there were 9 red heifers. He said the 10th would signal the appearance of the Messiah. That's why many are excited about this arrival. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Very fascinating. Gordon, your thoughts?
It is very fascinating. And why would something that was written in the book of Numbers still be relevant today? Well, let's look at what's said in the book of Numbers. You've already heard the first and second verse, but here's the 10th verse. The one who gathers the ashes of the heifer shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. And then let me underline this part. It shall be a statute forever to the children of Israel and to the stranger who dwells among them. So it's like God's underlining this. This is a statute forever for Israel, which is why we're seeing it today where they're looking for red heifers. They're literally scouring the world to find one. Then these candidates are going to be, these 5 cows are going to be raised in isolation. And 1 year from now, we're going to see what happens. But a statute forever for the children of Israel. The barbaric treatment and genocide of millions of Muslim Uyghurs in China is appalling. And it's not only the Uyghurs who are in the crosshairs. The Communist Party thinks that people of all religions are the biggest threat to its grip on power. So the Chinese government has declared a war on faith.
These mugshots, taken from Chinese police files, show some of the millions of Uyghurs being held in at least 1,200 Chinese concentration camps. Their crimes? They may have had relatives in other countries, or they may have made the mistake of applying for a passport. They may have had more than 3 children. They might be considered too religious, or they've been declared untrustworthy. This has been happening for years in the western Chinese province of Xinjiang, and the world has done almost nothing to stop it. Tersine, a Uyghur, was imprisoned for visiting her family in nearby Kazakhstan.
Our cell was 4 square meters, and there were more than 20 people. And there was only 1 bucket to be used as a toilet. At night, they would take out some people, especially some young girls, for interrogation. And we could hear their screaming. Some of the girls would bleed very badly. One woman had bite marks all over her body, and sometimes they would die because of the bleeding.
Tersine was gang raped by prison guards and tortured with electric shocks. Other inmates face forced sterilization, slave labor, and brainwashing. Prisoners are regularly killed so their organs can be harvested.
Everyone, literally every single prisoner, was subject to an organ examination. And after the examination, some people were put on a bus and taken somewhere else.
Those outside the camps live in an Orwellian world of constant surveillance. Authorities have placed QR codes on the outsides of homes that give them information about anyone living inside. And an app on their phone records everything they do. This photo shows the English translation of an app Chinese police use when they question someone. After the person's ID is entered, everything about them pops up on screen, including how much electricity they use. And then the app asks the officer if the person's reaction was normal or abnormal, and if the person requires further investigation. China is using every tool at its disposal in the war on faith. All faiths. Anything that could compete with allegiance to the communist state. China is also imprisoning huge numbers of Falun Gong members, a Buddhist sect, and house church Christians. Former President Trump's ambassador at large for international religious freedom, Sam Brownback.
Christians are arrested, pastors are put in jail, whole congregations are forced to go underground. The Uyghurs, even if you're not in the concentration camp, you got a camera for every other person that's there. You got a police station or kind of way station every 50 yards in the major cities. People are tracked constantly. They've taken genetic sampling of everybody. They've got facial recognition systems.
With a government mandate to break their lineage, break their roots, Beijing is using forced sterilization and forced marriages to bring an end to the Uyghurs as a people and a culture. The prime minister in exile of East Turkestan, what China now calls Xinjiang, is Salih Hudayar.
So the Chinese government essentially, aside from sterilizing our population, it wants to, breed us out, essentially. So they are forcing young Uyghur women to marry Han Chinese men. And if you refuse, then they're going to send you to a concentration camp and send everyone in your family into a concentration camp.
The man behind this repression is Chinese Politburo member Chen Quanguo, who was so successful in crushing resistance in Tibet that he was sent to Xinjiang to put in place a system to destroy Uyghur culture.
He's the architect. He designed and implemented the takedown of the Tibetan Buddhist system, and then got moved to do something similar to the Muslim population. They've taken this very seriously. They fear religion.
Under a program the Chinese government calls Pair Up and Become Family, more than 1 million Chinese party members have been assigned to move into the homes of Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities, spending weeks as uninvited guests monitoring their behavior, sometimes sharing their beds, and trying to convert them to communism. Meanwhile, the victims of Chinese repression feel abandoned by the United States and the world. A recent UN report on China's treatment of the Uyghurs refrained from using the term genocide, even though what China is doing fits the UN's own definition of genocide. Prime Minister Hu De'er suspects the UN caved to pressure from China. And after the White House claimed Joe Biden raised the issue of genocide with Chinese leader Xi Jinping recently, the Chinese government insisted that no, he did not. And sanctions by the U.S. and other Western nations have not worked.
You know, you could look at it and say, look, I'm a Christian. It really doesn't apply to me. It does apply to you. Because as soon as they go after one faith group, they're going to go after the next. The target is people of faith. The war is China's war on faith, and it's all faiths.
The American government knows exactly what China is doing to the Uyghurs. The world knows exactly what's happening, and it has done nothing.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
You have to question why have we done nothing? And this, frankly, isn't anything new. What has happened in Tibet was considered sort of, given what they're currently doing with the Uyghurs, kind of tame. What they did was they imported Han Chinese to Tibet and completely changed the population, so the Tibetans now are a minority in their own country. It's completely Han Chinese. What's happening to the Uyghurs is absolutely genocide, and it's a complete takeover. But on top of it, it's this Orwellian culture of control, where everything you do is monitored right down to the amount of electricity that you use. And it's all reported to the local police, which it's like every 50 yards there's a station, and that station is charged with policing you, observing everything you do, everyone you interact with, all your internet activity, all of it being recorded, being managed by the government. This is a blueprint for what's getting ready to happen to all of China, to Hong Kong, and if they gain control of Taiwan, to Taiwan. And could it be a blueprint for some kind of world government where we try to control everything that everyone does? There's a prediction in the Bible that you won't be able to buy and sell unless you do things in accordance with some kind of remote government. China is showing us how that's going to be implemented. For freedom-loving people, we have to stand up. We can't say, well, let's turn a blind eye to this. You have to stand up and say no. But China's been very smart. They've integrated our intellectual elite. They've integrated our economies. They've integrated our financial markets. The people who have money in the United States are absolutely tied to the Chinese economy and have been long-term investors. That is something new. It's a new strategy, but it seems to be very effective to make sure the U.S. government turns a blind eye to what they're doing to their own people. Well, down and out. Benny and Sara had no food in the fridge, and Christmas was coming. When Benny had to quit his job for health reasons, their income took a deep dive. Instead of holding on to what little money they had, the couple chose to give. And that choice made the way for a miracle.
Benny and Sara Kirtley love to talk about the good old days. They say God always saw them through, especially when it came to tough financial seasons, like years ago when Benny was in his 50s and found out he had heart problems.
I was in a very stressful job, and I knew that if I didn't quit, I'd die.
He had to get a pacemaker and go on disability, which drastically affected the couple's income. Around that time, the two became Christians, and Benny heard God speak to him about giving right away.
He said, hey, you start giving and I'll start giving.
We talked about it, but I'll be honest, I didn't know where it was going to come from.
Still, in the midst of the financial uncertainty, the couple chose to trust God with their money, and they tithed for the first time.
And when we started tithing, things began to change, really for the better.
Sara went from part-time to full-time work, making more than she ever had. Even when that job ended, Christmas coming up and no food in the fridge, the Kirtleys believed God would somehow intervene because they'd been consistently tithing.
We got on our knees, and he heard us. I know he did. Things came out of the blue.
And there was a woman in the church that heard that we didn't have any money. So she hands a check to our pastor, and it was for $250. It came from God, and he was saying, I've got you back. You're going to have food on the table for Christmas.
They immediately gave 10% of that $250 to their church, and God kept providing in the midst of Benny's health challenges. He got a paper route and helped a neighbor remodel his home, while Sara landed some interior decorating jobs. Then they fulfilled a long-standing dream and opened a very successful restaurant, always tithing from their income. Even when they finally retired, they decided to tithe on their Social Security and any additional income they received.
We found out we could not afford not to tithe.
It's easy. He promises in Scripture that he will give us more.
On top of tithing, the Kirtleys started giving to CBN.
We got to where we were really interested in what 700 Club was doing, and it touched our hearts. Medical, surgical, building homes, setting up businesses for these people, communities. These are people that need help, and children. They're becoming orphans. And Benny said, do you want to start tithing to the 700 Club? And I said, can we do it? He said, can we not? So we did.
The couple has increased their pledge to CBN several times and has given generous one-time gifts as well.
We're dedicated to helping other people through the 700 Club because I think it's one of the few things he asks us to do after we accept him is to further his kingdom. That's important, it really is.
Giving to the 700 Club is giving to the world. 700 Club are my feet. They're walking it there. All I'm doing is helping write the check.
Now in their golden years, they challenge others to tithe, to give to CBN, and watch what God will do.
He's just asking for us to do our part.
Pray about it and let God lead you and guide you. That money is not ours, it's his.
You can't outgive God. You cannot.
Well, Benny and Sara learned a wonderful secret, and it's a revealed secret. Give, and it will be given unto you. When you follow that and you say, yes, I'm going to dedicate myself to doing it God's way. I want to do it cheerfully. I want to do it generously. I want to give. Well, then something wonderful is going to happen. Here's a promise from Deuteronomy chapter 28. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you because you obey the voice of the Lord your God. If God is telling you to give, if God is showing that as a way for you, well, then by all means, obey that voice. I know it's counterintuitive. The world wants to tell you, well, when you have enough money, then you can give. Or, you know, when you've made enough to make sure that all your bills are paid, and everything's taken care of, and then from that excess you can give. That's not the Bible way. The Bible way is give. Give first. Give of your increase, 10%. Give it cheerfully. Give it off the top. When you do, well, then wonderful things can happen. If you want to start a life of doing this, this isn't some kind of get-rich-quick scheme. This isn't some lottery. This is a lifestyle. And when you choose to be generous, you choose to give, you choose to put God first in your finances, when you choose that and choose it regularly, then you know that He has your future. You know that promise will be true. All these blessings will overtake you. If you want to start doing that, give us a call. 1-800-700-7000. Say, I want to give to the 700 Club. If you want to help people around the world, right now we have Operation Blessing teams in Puerto Rico. We have a number of centers helping the refugees out of Ukraine. We're providing food pantries right here in America with millions of pounds of food every single year. You can be a part of all of it when you join the 700 Club, because a portion of every gift goes into the work of Operation Blessing. Another portion goes into the work of CBN International to preach the gospel around the world. You're a part of everything we do, whether it's CBN News, this program, Operation Blessing, CBN International. You're a part of all of it when you give. How much is it to join? It's just $20 a month, and that's 65 cents a day. Some of you can join at higher levels. We have 700 Club Gold at $40 a month. 1,000 Club is $1,000 a year. That breaks out to $84 a month. When you call and join, I've got something for you. It's a new teaching on the book of on the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. When you give at $20 a month, we'll send you one copy of it. When you give at 700 Club Gold, we'll send you 3 copies, so you have enough to share with your friends and family. If you give at 1,000 Club, we'll send you 5 copies. And when you listen to this new teaching on the 23rd Psalm, you'll learn the Hebrew meaning behind the words, and you'll discover the promises, protection, and provision available to you. I want to do a meditation on the Psalm of David, Psalm 23.
Gordon Robertson presents The Lord is My Shepherd, a Psalm of David.
Each verse is a guide for us in our life. And it's a beautiful illustration for me of how Jesus leads us. What happens when we fully embrace the Lord is my shepherd?
Get The Lord is My Shepherd, the latest audio teaching from Gordon Robertson. Call now or go to cbn.com.
Susanna and her 3 sons live in a shanty made from scrap metal. It's a step up from the lean-to tarp they once lived in. Her youngest boy cries at night because the family has so little food. Still, their desperate situation never stops Susanna from dreaming. And one day, you made her dream come true.
Susanna is a single mother raising her 3 boys alone. For a whole year after her husband abandoned them, she lived in a lean-to made of tree branches and a tarp near Iquitos, Peru.
When we used to live in the lean-to, the wind blew it down, and we all got wet. We woke up shivering from the cold.
Eventually, Susanna moved to a piece of land given to her by her brother. There, she built a shanty made of scraps of wood and cast-off metal sheets.
I suffered a lot with my boys. When the rains come with strong winds, we felt the house move. The roof made noises, and my sons got scared and cried.
This is 7-year-old Ezekiel.
Sometimes it rained hard. When the wind blew and the rain came in, we got wet.
Susanna did her best to improve the house and roof whenever she found a new piece of metal or scrap of wood.
This place did not have a good roof or strong walls. We had to eat on the floor, and we didn't have a bathroom.
Susanna also struggled to find work. She sold snacks, but her daily income was limited. There was only enough money for them to eat 1 meal a day.
What hurts me is seeing my little brother cry for food because Mom comes home late at night. She worries about my little brother and me.
I worry every single day. I can't help it. It hurts me to watch my children suffer.
Then Operation Blessing offered to help. First, we built Susanna and the boys a sturdy new house.
My biggest dream was to have a safe home for my children, with rooms, beds, and a table so we don't have to eat on the floor.
Her new home has a kitchen, bathroom, beds, table, and chairs, just like she asked for.
Thank God. Not only do I have a new house, I also have a refrigerator, pots, spoons, plates, and other items to care for my children.
Then, to help her provide for the daily needs of her kids, we gave her what she needed, including training, so she was able to start a business selling food from her new home. Susanna said she now earns nearly 3 times what she used to make selling on the streets.
My brothers and I are happy because they gave my mom a house. Now we eat 3 times a day.
My children sleep comfortably now that they have their own beds. They are safe, happy, and content. Thank you. I am so grateful.
Don't you find it, as I do, amazing that a mom, a single mom, a woman raising children and just trying to get by, could continue to dream in the midst of such poverty? And I also find it amazing that God allows you and me to enter right into the midst of someone's need like that and give them what to them is a mansion. I mean, this woman no longer has to be wet or her children wet as they sleep and shiver all night. She doesn't have to wonder where their next meal is coming from. You know, when a parent worries, kids feel it. So every child in that family was affected. I think it's just an incredible opportunity to be able to see something like that and then say, I want to make a difference. That's the kind of difference that people who join the 700 Club are making all over the world every day. Very often a need that's met here in the United States as well. It's not just around the world. If you'd like to be a part of that, for $20 a month, you can become a 700 Club member. I want to say thank you to so many of you who've already done that, and I want to ask you today if you would consider going up to another level. We have lots of options for you. You could go up to 700 Club Gold with a gift of $40 a month, or join the 1,000 Club at $84 a month. Our 2,500 Club members join us at $2,500 a year. That works out to $209 a month. And our founders, $5,000 a year, which works out to $417 a month. Ask God what he'd have you to do, because when we have been given privilege, I think he expects us to do something about those who struggle. Join with the rest of us. You really can make a difference. Our line is toll-free. It's 1-800-700-7000. You just call and say, I want to join the 700 Club. We're waiting to hear from you anxiously. So pick up your phone and call. And when you do, with joy, tell us the level you'd like to give at. And we have a wonderful gift we'd love to send you. It's Gordon's latest teaching. It's on the 23rd Psalm, one of my favorite Psalms. A psalm many of us memorize as we're growing up, but there's a new teaching on this that will refresh you. I think it will feed your soul and encourage you to live strong for the Lord. We want you to have that. So call now, make a difference in the lives of others, and be blessed at the same time. Gordon?
Well, when you join the 700 Club, you help people all over the world and right here at home in the USA. With inflation and the rising cost of food, Jennifer and Matt were already struggling to make ends meet. Then Jennifer had emergency surgery and she couldn't work. The couple needed a hand up to make it through the tough times. And that's exactly what they got, thanks to you.
When Matt and Jennifer first married, they lived paycheck to paycheck. Then Jennifer had an ectopic pregnancy that required emergency surgery and a month of recovery after losing the baby. She couldn't work, so Matt became Jennifer's caregiver and the couple's sole provider. It was hard on both of them.
I had always been sort of independent. I felt like I could take care of myself.
I was a guy who was supposed to provide for my family, and knowing that I was doing everything I could physically, it just wasn't enough.
They needed food and basic household supplies, so they turned to Lighthouse Gospel Mission, a partner of Operation Blessing.
The word for it is just awesome. It was amazing to know that other people are there for you through Operation Blessing and through the pallets and the boatloads of food. Everything that we needed was there.
We were really fortunate in that season. We really needed all of those things, and it was really the first opportunity that I got to experience that kind of love.
Through the help of Operation Blessing in their church community, Matt and Jennifer were able to get back on their feet.
Next thing you know, Jennifer calls me up. She's crying. I'm like, what? I'm pregnant? But then, I have to hang up. I cried like a baby. I was like, oh my God, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
So then when we had Aubrey, it was really just an amazing experience. God really used a lot of people at church, and our pastors just kind of opened up the door to the warehouse and said, whatever you guys need, go ahead and get it.
Thanks to the support of Operation Blessing Partners, many families like Matt and Jennifer's are now thriving.
What you did helped my wife, myself, my family. It helped each and every one of us not only know that it's not just the food, but that God was there with us.
Thank you for allowing yourself to be the hands and feet of God.
Isn't that wonderful? If you're a member of the 700 Club, you help that couple experience love. That's how they described it. We experienced love. It's great to be able to reach out with hands of love and compassion to people in their time of need. Not some kind of handout, but a hand up to say, we're with you. When hard times are here, we want to be with you. We want to help you make it through so that you can have the same experience that we've had, that you can experience God's love. If you want to be a part of it, all you have to do is call us and join and say, yes, I want to be a member of the 700 Club. I want to help people here in America. I want to help people around the world. I want to join in what you're doing. How much is it? It's $20 a month, 65 cents a day. Some of you can give at higher levels, and if you're already a 700 Club member, I encourage you to increase. Go to 700 Club Gold, $40 a month. 1,000 Club is $1,000 a year. That breaks out to $84 a month. We also have 2,500 Club, which is $2,500 a year. Founder is $5,000 or more a year. Then Chairman Circle, $10,000 or more a year. At whatever level, when you call, make sure you ask for Pledge Express. That's electronic monthly giving, the bank doing all the work. And we can send monthly teaching CDs to you called Powerful Life. You can also get them as downloads or streams. It's your choice. But we want you to have these wonderful teachings. It's yours when you join Pledge Express. There are a variety of ways you can join. You can say, I want Pledge Express when you call, 1-800-700-7000. You can go to cbn.com. When you give monthly on the internet, you automatically sign up for Pledge Express. We have a new text to give where you text the letters CBN to 71777. A page will come up that will direct you to a giving form. On there, it'll say you can give monthly. And when you give monthly on text to give, again, you automatically sign up for Pledge Express. Do it now. And as our gift, when you join, you'll get The Lord is My Shepherd. It will take you on a journey through the 23rd Psalm. You'll see how the Good Shepherd meets every one of our needs, and you'll discover what it means to dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
It's the most memorized passage in the Psalms.
This is a guide for every pilgrim, every Christian as you go through life.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents The Lord is My Shepherd, a Psalm of David. You'll discover the path to true provision, the key to claiming victory over your battles. Plus, learn how to hear God's voice and experience His presence. Get this encouraging new teaching today. Call now or go to cbn.com.
Christians coming together in Washington, D.C. for the third annual March for the Martyrs tomorrow. As religious persecution intensifies worldwide, the event aims to unite Christians calling for global religious freedom. The March for the Martyrs event comes as 1 in 7 Christians around the world face high levels of persecution, that according to Open Doors' World Watch list. Marchers who gather on the National Mall will help raise awareness for the 360 million people suffering for their faith around the world. CBN's Operation Blessing is helping to provide a better education for children in need. In the island village of Boca del Rio Viejo in Honduras, citizens were teaching children outdoors because they didn't have the money for a school building. So students had to endure long hours in the summer sun. But thanks to Operation Blessing, the community got the finances they needed to build a new school. It includes designated spaces for various activities, plenty of room for students, more students, a playground, and the building is elevated off the ground to protect it from flooding. One grateful mother said, "The people that donated are such a blessing." You can find out more about Operation Blessing by visiting ob.org.
Rejection and abuse. Well, that's all Brandon ever felt from his father. The two of them engaged in epic fights at home until his father abandoned the family. And that's when Brandon made a stunning discovery. And suddenly, he realized he'd been living a lie.
I struggled with a murderous rage and such a horrible anger problem that I would say things to him and I would cut him down and I would try to do anything and everything I could to hurt him because of how hurt I was.
Growing up, Brandon Brecht moved around a lot due to his father's military career. His dad was constantly absent from Brandon's life, and when he was around, his father's anger often resulted in physical and emotional abuse.
My father would make these promises to show up at my games and other things, but I would always look out and he would never be there. But when he was home, it was, him yelling at me or being angry or me always seeing my sisters treated better. And I just felt really like my life did not matter.
The absence of a caring father left a hole that Brandon could not fill. As a teenager, he became addicted to video games, which served as an escape from reality. But one day, that escape came to an end.
At this time, I had longer hair. My father came into the room. He grabbed me by my hair and threw me on the ground and got on top of me and began to choke me. And I got so angry that I started crying. And one of the things he asked me is like, "Oh, are you going to cry like a baby? Are you going to be a little girl?" I hardened my heart and shut off that emotion. I went into the kitchen and grabbed a knife and I told him, I said, "If you call the cops on me, I'm going to kill myself." And shortly after that, they ended up arriving at the house where he was being abusive towards me, but I was the one that actually got arrested and went to the juvenile detention center because of it.
When he was eventually released, he moved into his friend's house, where his life continued to spiral out of control.
I started smoking weed, started skipping school, started really living a life of rebellion. And I found these friends that actually made me feel like I was wanted, because up until that point, I never felt like anybody wanted me or cared for me or loved me.
Brandon eventually rejoined his family when they moved to Georgia. But shortly after they arrived, his father walked out.
He left my family with nothing. We were living in Royston, Georgia, in the middle of the woods, and he decided to leave.
After his father left, Brandon was rummaging through a box at his house, and he discovered something that would turn his world upside down: his birth certificate.
My whole life, up until 15 years old, I've known myself as Brandon Robert Brecht. Well, I'm looking in this box at this birth certificate, and it says Brandon Terrence Peele. And at that moment, when I saw that, my whole world stopped. My whole life, I've thought this was who I was, but now I see my whole life was a lie. And I was like, well, this is why he didn't love me. This is why he never showed me any affection. This is why he was never there for me, because I wasn't his.
He sought acceptance wherever he could find it. Brandon was introduced to crack cocaine by a coworker, partying, drinking, and eventually heroin.
I was at the bottom of myself. I hated my life. I hated everything about myself. I had so much shame. I had so much regret. I had so much anger towards myself and everybody involved, my family, my friends. I was always abandoned or rejected and didn't have any security or stability. But I remember this night, I went into the bathroom and I just began to cry out to God, saying, God, I hate my life. Every time I try to get clean, every time I try to do better, I go right back to the same thing. And if this is how my life's gonna be, I just wanna die. And clear as day, I heard God's audible voice. And he said, are you ready? And in that moment, I looked up and I said, ready for what? He said, are you ready to live up to everything I created you to be? To serve your full purpose? And I said, yes, I surrender, I give up. I believe right there is when I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. I noticed that there's something different about me. Immediately, I felt this peace, this love, this security, this life enter into me.
Even though he had an encounter with the Lord, Brandon continued to struggle with breaking the hold drugs and alcohol had on his life. A month after his spiritual experience, he overdosed on heroin.
I woke up in the hospital where my mom told me that she asked the paramedics if I was alive. They said, no, he's not breathing, he doesn't have a pulse. So from that overdose, I ended up dying and losing my life. But God had better plans for me, and he brought me back.
At the end of his rope, he enrolled in a faith-based recovery program that found the root of his addictions.
It's pretty much a discipleship boot camp. It's not just a regular place you go and hang out at, but it's really getting you to a place where you begin to hear God's voice, where you get grounded in who you are. You start walking through some of the emotional healing that's definitely needed, especially from the things that I went through. Learned what forgiveness was and was able to really forgive my mother and my father and so many other people that had hurt me, and even myself for the decisions that I made.
He reconciled the relationship with his father. He spent 4 years serving in the ministry that helped him. He hopes to someday become an itinerant minister so that he can continue to share the miraculous work God has done in his life.
When I began to encounter his love and his goodness and that he was a loving father who took me as I was, that's when I really began to understand, like, okay, wait, I do have a purpose in life. I do matter. I got a second chance at life, and I'm gonna do anything and everything I can to be able to share that with whoever comes in my path. And it just brings me joy to be able to take my story and what I've been through, saying, okay, these are all the mistakes that I've made in life, but this is where I am now, and this is what God's doing with me.
I've got great news for you. God has a purpose for you. He has a plan for you. He has a destiny for you. And all of that is to give you a hope, to give you meaning, to drive you every day, to let you know that he cares for you. He has created good things, good works for us to walk into, and he did all of that before he even laid the foundation of the world. That's what the Bible says. And when you read it and say, well, that's about me, it is transformational. It gives you hope every day to say, yes, what does God have for me today? What is the purpose for today? How can he use me today? Lord, can you use me? Now, that Lord part may be strange to you. You hear people say, I made Jesus my Lord and Savior. You may be sitting there saying, well, I know Jesus died for me. I know he forgave me of my sins. I know he's my Savior. But there's a whole nother relationship waiting for you where you allow him to be Lord of your life, to say, will you direct me? Would you use me? I want to, just like Brandon got this wonderful word, are you ready to live up to your potential? Are you ready to live up to what God has already purposed for you? To do that, you have to surrender. And you have to say, not my will, but your will be done. Now, he'll still be Savior no matter what you do. Isn't that incredible? That you can live your life your way, and all who call upon the name of the Lord will be saved. He's that generous, he's that loving, he's that good. But here's something for you. Don't miss out. You don't want to spend eternity wondering, what could I have done? And in that eternity, you really want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. You don't want to hear, away from me, you lawless ones. If you love me, obey my commandments. What has God purposed for you? What is your destiny? Now, for those that don't know if Jesus is real, here's a very simple prayer. Jesus, if you're there, could you show me? If you really are my Savior, if you've really forgiven me, could you show me? For those who have already prayed that, Brandon had a religious experience, and a month later, he has an overdose. Here's the other prayer for you. It's a prayer of complete surrender. Lord, I surrender all to you. If you want help with that prayer, give us a call, 1-800-700-7000. We leave you these words from Luke. It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. God bless. We'll see you next week.